Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. When I was a teenager in the 1960s, my family owned at one time or another several different brands of televisions: Zenith, RCA, and Magnavox. Let me read to you from Wikipedia about these three brands. Zenith Electronics Corporation is a brand of the South Korean company LG Electronics. The company was previously an American manufacturer of televisions and other consumer electronics and was headquartered in Lincolnshire, Illinois. RCA Corporation, founded as the Radio Corporation of America, was an American electronics company in existence from 1919 to 1986. The RCA trademark is currently owned by a French conglomerate, Technicolor SA. Magnavox was a U.S. electronics company founded by Edwin Pridham and Peter L. Jensen, who invented the moving coil loudspeaker in 1915. At their labs in Napa, California, they formed Magnavox in 1917 in order to market their inventions. In 1974, the Magnavox company was acquired by Philips, a Dutch company. Today's topic is, can American-owned and operated companies manufacture consumer electronic goods and be competitive? To speak on that subject is Dr. Kevin Hubbard, Director of the Southwest Illinois Advanced Manufacturing Center at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. Dr. Hubbard has worked in the field of manufacturing engineering for 20 years and has conducted more than 120 research projects for manufacturing and technical enterprises across the United States. He's a certified manufacturing engineer. Kevin Hubbard, welcome to Conversation.
Nice to be here.
Glad you're here. I'm going to go through a quick story here, and then you're going to, and I already told you this story, but I'm going to do it for the benefit of people who are listening to this. Around Labor Day of 2011, I went looking for a compact flash for my Canon camera, went to a computer warehouse. They said, we don't have any because of the tsunami in Japan. Then about a week or so ago, and right now we're around Thanksgiving 2011, a week or so ago, I went to buy a hard drive for my wife's computer, an internal hard drive. There were hardly any on the shelf. They said, Thailand flood. I said, hey, see what happens when you become dependent upon other nations for your electronic goods. The guy said, well, yeah, but if we made them here, it would cost $400. And I said, wait. Jack Welch, former CEO of GE, said manufacturing doesn't require as much labor as it did once upon a time. And I came to think, well, maybe we could actually manufacture stuff here if the labor isn't that big of a portion of manufactured goods. So now that I've said that, now it's your turn, Mr. Manufacturing Engineer. Am I on the right angle here? Am I seeing this correctly, that maybe we could manufacture?
I believe that you are correct. Since the late 70s, productivity in the United States has gone up by even a factor of 3. And manufacturing is the sector of the economy that's driven that productivity increase. The amount of manual labor that's done in manufacturing today is quite small compared to what it was in, let's say, 1970. As a result, the value added that American workers add to products is gigantic compared to what it was 30 years ago. Other countries can't compete in that area. Our labor costs are higher than some other countries, but our workers are so productive that more than oversets that inequality on the labor cost.
So why would you think that Zenith's, RCA, and Magnavox are no longer really American brands anyway? I mean, they have American names, but they're not American brands anymore?
Well, part of this problem is it's a set of circumstances that we ourselves have created. Our regulatory compliance burden is greater than any other nation.
What does that term mean?
The dollars that we have to spend in order to make sure that we don't pollute, to make sure that our workers are safe, things of this nature. The dollars that we spend to comply with our own regulations far exceed those of any other nation. The closest nation to us is France, and they're about half, in rough terms. They have about half the regulatory burden that we have. If we could reduce our burden to that of France, we'd be extremely competitive.
Well, okay. Now, let's ask this question then. Are the French somehow affecting their workers in a much more negative way than American manufacturers are?
I'm not sure that I understand the...
Well, what I'm saying is, for all this regulation that has been added in America, and you said that the burden is half that in France.
Yeah.
So because it's half in France, are the workers there being affected in a negative way more than they're being affected in a negative way here?
No, I think actually it gives France a little bit of a competitive advantage to us. Their products become relatively more competitive compared to American products. And of course the classic examples are Chinese products, Mexican products, Indian products. But even France, with a fairly large regulatory burden, doesn't come up to our regulatory burden.
Are workers being injured more? Are they being polluted more in a way which makes their life shortened, or in France I'm talking about?
Yeah, not in any way that I know of. I think their quality of life, their job safety and so forth are comparable with ours.
Mm-hmm. Well, as an engineer, what are we getting for our dollars spent?
In terms of regulatory compliance?
Yeah.
At this point, depending on the regulation you're talking about, it's dangerous to paint with a broad brush, but yes. I'll do it anyway. In general, we're playing at the margins at this point. If we look at pollution regulations, at this point, regardless of the amount of money we spend, the improvements in pollution will be unable to measure them with the best instruments that we own. So we could spend an additional 30 or 40 or $500 billion in pollution compliance costs, and we wouldn't be able to measure the benefit. Our instruments are not sensitive enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, here, just so you know, when I was talking about being a boy in the 60s, I was a boy in the 60s in Cleveland, and so I lived adjacent to both Lake Erie and the Cuyahoga River. Now, Lake Erie, they said at that point, oh my God, you've aged it 100,000 years in a matter of a generation, and it's dead, it'll never come back. The Cuyahoga River, as everybody knows, somebody threw a cigarette in there, there was a sheen on the top, and it flashed, and there was a fire on the water, and Cleveland never lived that down. Yeah. But the point being that once the Clean Water Act was passed, I think by Senator Muskie, he was the sponsor of that back in 1970, within a decade, you could actually see down to the bottom of the Cuyahoga River.
Yeah.
And so they had gone from 100 down to 10% terrible.
Yeah.
And yet there are people who are still pushing to spend as much money as they've already spent to get the last 10%, as if that were possible.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about in terms of playing at the margins. If you drive north of here, where we are right now, and look at the ConocoPhillips refinery, and you see what's coming out of their smokestacks, that's water vapor. That's about 99% water vapor. And yet there are some people that look at that and insist that it's horrible pollution and wish the refinery weren't here. We should be very glad that the refinery's here. It really helps the regional economy, and it's keeping the construction economy in the region going.
Not to mention that the money that people earn there keeps, Schnucks and Dierbergs and Walmart and Sears and all the other places in business, because now folks actually have money to spend.
Yeah, and in fact, in the Midwest, economists speak about a multiplication, a multiplier factor. So for every dollar that you spend on a manufacturing activity here in the Midwest portion of the country, about 43 additional cents get returned to the economy. We have the highest multiplier factor of any region in the U.S. So every time that we add one manufacturing job, the economy benefits not just from the salary or wage that's associated with that job, but you get about another 43% benefit from the local grocery stores and trucking companies and so forth.
Now, coming back to my hard drive, are you familiar with the manufacture of electronic goods like that?
I am.
Okay. So then when I ask the question, how are these things actually built? I mean, is it a series of machines? Is that in some sort of a very clean environment? And what is it that the human beings that are in there are actually doing? So go.
It is, that's true. Typically that kind of production is done in an automated fashion in a semi-clean room environment. So you can think of these things as robots, and in many cases that's a useful description, or placing components on these boards and building up the devices. 40 years ago, we would have seen a line of people along a moving conveyor belt doing this work, but today it's done in an automated way.
So what is it that the human beings who are present, what are they doing?
Those are high-skill, high-wage jobs. What they're doing is troubleshooting, monitoring. If a problem arises, they're fixing it. Those types of activities. So they're in a supervisory role over the automated system.
So we can manufacture, but we're not going to be able to take high school dropouts like we used to and plug them into these jobs.
That's true. Those days are probably, depending on in most industries, those days are probably in the past.
Because I've heard stories about, again, at the time when I was a boy, that up in, and I was far away, but up in Alton and in Granite City, that a kid could graduate or leave high school and could go just knock on the door and boom, okay, go to work. And then you don't like that, and then you don't like the foreman or something, quit there and move on to the next factory right up the road, knock there. Next thing you know, you're working there. These days we're not going back into the past to that.
I don't think so. Today's typical manufacturing worker needs to have a relatively high level of math skills.
When you say high level, how high of a level? I mean, they don't need to be Einstein or anything.
No, that's true. But if you're looking at a numerically controlled machine operator, so if you think of a milling machine or a lathe, but it's computer controlled. So the typical operator needs to at least be able to read the program, do certain types of trigonometry and geometry problems, and then troubleshoot what's happening if a problem arises. So it's a higher skilled position than it was in the past.
Okay. And so do they have to go all the way to SIU, to the engineering school, to get this, or is this something that excuse me, that they could learn at say a community college level?
Oh, they definitely could. And we have a program that we call a 2+2+2 program. 2 years at the high school level, 2 years at the community college level, and then 2 years at the college level. And you can leave the program at any of those breakpoints. So you can leave after the first 2 years and be qualified to have a shop floor type of job.
2 years meaning at the junior college level?
Oh, even at the high school
level. Oh, really?
Level.
Okay.
Then 2 more years at the community college level, and you're qualified for a technician level job. Or finish the final 2 years at SIUE and go to work as an engineer.
Just for people to understand, they've heard the term engineer. We're not talking about driving a train. What is it that engineers do?
We're applied scientists, really. So we use science and math to create product designs, find out a lot of what I do is to look at members in machines and make sure that they're designed sufficiently that they won't break. We create automated systems and generate programs. So really we take science and apply it to create things.
Mm-hmm. When you were younger, did you tinker with stuff? I mean, before you became an engineer, as a kid, did you like tinker with stuff, and that was like, boy, that's interesting, and that's what got you into it?
I did. I grew up in a rural community, and there was always equipment that needed to be repaired. If there wasn't equipment that needed some kind of maintenance or repair, quite often I would find something and take it apart, and sometimes it would get put back together and other times not. But
I bet Dad really appreciated that.
He did. He told me all about it on occasion. But yeah, that was the kind of thing. When I was in high school, I worked part-time in the evening as an automobile mechanic and that kind of thing.
So, so you would encourage parents today to make sure that their young people are actually active with their hands?
I would. Sometimes we get people in our programs, aspiring engineers. Quite often they're very, very good. They've done this kind of thing all their lives. Other times they have a great desire, but they don't know
what a screwdriver is?
Exactly.
That's kind of hard.
Yeah. They're starting way behind the curve. They've got a lot of catching up to do at that point.
Well, if they think that it's all math, I think that they ought to be in theoretical physics instead.
Yeah, and that's really the difference. Engineers are practical scientists that design and then build things, as opposed to all on paper. We definitely interface with the physical world.
Mm-hmm. All right, so coming back to Metro East, Illinois, we were talking earlier, and you were saying, this is before we were on the air, and you were saying that you thought that this area is ripe for some sort of a renaissance as a manufacturing center. On what do you base that statement?
Well, the logistics are perfect here. We're at the intersection of road, river, rail, and air transport. No other area in the country has everything that we have in terms of logistics. We've got a great intermodal capacity to ship by rail, for example, and transfer to river, or vice versa. Those two types of transportation will become increasingly important to us once again as history cycles around. Every time fuel prices rise, those two methods of transportation become more important. We're within 600 miles of 2/3 of the agricultural production in the United States. In other words, if you swing a 600-mile radius circle right here centered on, let's say, Edwardsville, 2/3 of all agricultural production in the United States lies inside that circle. That gives us a great opportunity because manufactured products are increasingly being produced using agricultural feedstocks. So where we used to use oil, for example, petroleum, to make plastics, it's beginning to be possible to manufacture those same plastics from soybean derivatives, with the benefit that they're renewable and you won't run out of them. The price is also becoming competitive. So those kind of things are certainly in our favor. Our history's in our favor here as well. We've got about 150 plus year history of manufacturing in this region. There are towns in the region that are named for manufacturing activities, like Allerton is named because it was an aluminum ore processing center. It was aluminum ore town.
Oh, that I've never heard.
The skill set is excellent here. Whether we're talking about primary metals, we're actually a refining center. That puts us in good position to do other kind of new use agricultural products like bio-based lubricants. There's a budding pharmaceutical and nutraceutical capability in the area. Plus, we're still in the heart of what is sometimes referred to as the aerospace capital of the world, and we have all of the skill sets that are associated with that industry as well. Skill sets.
Let me interrupt and ask this question. ConocoPhillips has been running a series of television commercials in which they have opposing points of view, and there's always someone asking, well, what about the Earth? So I ask you, what about the Earth? I mean, is there a pollution or a destruction issue in what you're talking about?
Not anymore. Starting about the time that you mentioned, when the river literally caught on fire, we did take steps that were necessary to clean up manufacturing activities. But today, any smokestack industry, many people will use that term, those smokestacks are outfitted with scrubbers. So we electrically charge the particles and attract them to the wall instead of letting them go out into the air, and that's just one example. We know how to manufacture in a clean manner today that we didn't know. We know things that we didn't know in, let's say, 1970.
But this is more costly, though, than just letting gases or particulate matter escape into the air.
On those kind of technologies, the things that we've had around that were developed, let's say in the 70s, the price has come way down. It's the new measures that we are trying to take now to tackle that 1/10 of 1% that's left. Those are really expensive. But things like smokestack scrubbers, that's a commodity these days.
As an engineer, I get the feeling that you don't see that 1/10 of 1% as a serious health hazard to the average citizen.
No, I don't. If you compare pollution, whether it's airborne, waterborne, however it's transmitted in this country, to what is current, let's say in China or Mexico or
Korea,
the East Bloc countries of the former Soviet Union, those countries are far, far dirtier. They don't have pollution control to any significant level. We do. We're clean. There's nothing, there are a few things that we can do that will produce a measurable difference. If we're talking on a worldwide basis and we want to do something about pollution, we should focus our attention on the dirty areas, not the cleanest area in the world, which is the United States.
China is a very large manufacturing power in the world now. Is their lackadaisical attitude towards some of these things you're talking about, is that part of the differential in the cost of manufacture?
It probably is, but the biggest thing is that they're an emerging manufacturing power, and so their wages really have not caught up to the skills that they want to employ. This happens every time a country emerges as a manufacturing power. We've watched it with Japan and Korea in the last 20 or 30 years, and now we're seeing it with China. Wages are rising, and they'll soon become, within a matter of years, competitive with U.S. wages. The advantage that Chinese companies often have that U.S. companies don't is that they're helped by the Chinese government and subsidized, and our companies typically are not.
Now, these include companies that would move from the United States that are being helped. Like, I know that GE has been moving a lot of its manufacturing facilities from the West to the East.
Yeah, and on occasion, I would say regular occasion, those companies also receive these kind of incentives that are not available to them in the United States.
We've got about 5 minutes left. Believe it or not, time goes by fast here. Is there anything that we have not yet covered that you think we need to get into? If so, go ahead.
I think we've actually, your questions, I think, hit every topic that I had in mind to discuss.
Well, we got 5 minutes, so we can't quit now.
That's right.
So, now, what you were just saying, though, about the labor costs in China versus, again, the labor costs here in the United States or in the West in general, it's my proposition, which is why we're having this discussion, that even though there's this, maybe, our guys are getting $15 an hour, their guys are getting $1 an hour, right?
Yeah.
But that the fact that there is so little labor in these manufactured goods, that this 15 versus $1 is minimal in the final product.
That's actually a very good point, and a correct one. Depending on the kind of product you make, it varies widely from if you're making a fighter jet aircraft or a plastic toy plane.
What's the difference between those?
Yeah,
just explain what you're thinking there.
If on the one hand you're producing an F-18 at Boeing St. Louis, or on the other hand you're making a toy for a child, the labor cost varies. But a real nice figure for labor cost as a percentage of product cost is about 7%, depending on the product. So if labor cost is about 7%, and you increase or decrease by even 10%, you're talking about going from 6.3% to 7%. It's not much of a difference. So if your workers are paid at a higher rate than in another country, it may not affect the cost of the product to any significant level. The other thing is that our workers, and especially in the Midwest, are very, very productive. So it could be that you can pay a higher wage and even have a cheaper,
get more, for your more bang for your buck.
Exactly.
Now, what so that those parents who are listening to this, what would you think that they should be encouraging their children to be studying?
If this kind of area is of interest at all, and we're looking at a workforce shortage actually within the next 20 years. So even in grade school, certainly in junior high and high school, math and science are very, very good topics. And then depending on the level at which a person might be interested in entering the workforce, there are still good high school programs that can prepare you for a manufacturing career, or programs at the college level as well. But
is there any room left if a guy I want to be a welder?
We have, in this region, we have a critical shortage of welders right now.
And what does it take to become a welder? What do you need to know before you get to the first class on welding?
Just general preparation always comes back, especially on the math side. So if you know geometry, a little bit of algebra, those kind of things, you're prepared well to train to be a welder.
And we're like down to our last 30 seconds here. You just used the term labor shortage. Can you just briefly describe what you mean by that?
We still have a large manufacturing base, especially in this region, but the workforce is aging, and they're not being replaced because these careers are not glamorous. They're not viewed as being glamorous. So as our aging workforce leaves and is not replaced by a young workforce, we end up with a shortage of machinists. Welders is a great example of this type of thing. And as a result, the pay goes up. The pay is premium right now in some of these occupations.
Okay, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I've been speaking with Dr. Kevin Hubbard. He's with and I forget the whole thing, but Southwestern Illinois Advanced Manufacturing Center over at SIU. You might want to check them out. Their data has been, the graphics have been up on the screen throughout the show. We want to thank him for being with us, and to the rest who are regulars, we'll see you next week.